We're on the right channel. I am not, in fact, Rabbi Jamie Aklepi. Our fearless rabbi is out for the next 2 weeks on a well-deserved vacation. So, Rabbi, wherever you are, I hope that you are enjoying a delicious happy hour cocktail on some beach somewhere. I'm not sure. But for those who don't know me, my name is Andrea Levine, and I am so honored to have been asked to step in for Rabbi Aklepi. I'm the program director at Temple Beth. So what is the program director? I get that question a lot, and I have long since resigned myself to the fact that I will never be able to describe my job in a short sentence. But in a word, in a few words, I work closely with our clergy and with our amazing lay leadership to create opportunities for our congregants to engage in Jewish life, in their Jewish identity, Jewish learning, and perhaps most importantly, in Jewish community and engaging and connecting with one another. So how do we do that? Could be through an adult education class, maybe a speaker series, a Shabbat dinner, a holiday celebration. But every so often, I get a very unique opportunity to engage our congregants in a more out-of-the-box way, something a little bit more unique. So that's what we're going to talk about today on Erev Tov. Now, I think part of the reason the rabbi asked me to host the show while she was away is because typically I am producing the show. One of the many hats I wear now that we have gone virtual is in the production room. I like to think of myself as Roz from Frasier, for those of you who like a good 90s reference. Sort of the sassy gal behind the scenes making things run. Today my Roz is Neil Littauer. I'm so thankful for him taking over that responsibility. But one of the other reasons I imagine she assumed I would be okay with hosting this show is that Rabbi Aklepi knows that I do not have any qualms about being in front of an audience. And one of the things that has been so rewarding for me about working at Temple Beth is that I've had so many opportunities to do so. I have gotten to sing on the Bima with Cantor Nelson. I chant Torah regularly at Minyan, or I did when we were in person. I have been in the Purim Spiel every year, 3 years running as Esther. I might be paying someone. But perhaps most notably, I have gotten to be in front of an audience through our Temple Beth Community Theater program. So that's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to do a deeper dive into that program. We're going to talk theater. We're going to talk the arts, why they're important, and how we can use them to engage in Jewish community. But first, I want to be true to the spirit of the show. So we got to mix a cocktail because it's 5:30, it's happy hour, and Rabbi Aklepi loves her a cocktail. Now, I must admit, I am not a big cocktail person. I am more of a beer and wine gal, as you may have guessed from my nickname that Rabbi Barris gave me several Passover Seders ago, 4 cups of wine Levine. I do prefer a glass of wine, but I want to stay true to the format. So where I am going to differ a little bit is that Rabbi Aklepi tends towards more sweet cocktails, and that's not really my bag. So today I present to you a sort of take on an Aperol Spritz, and I call it the Bullet over Broadway because I'm going to be using Bullet Bourbon. Now, the reason that I picked Bullet Bourbon is because it was on sale a few weeks ago at Big Daddy's. And also so that I could use the name Bullet over Broadway. You by no means need to use this brand, but it's a good one. So we need bourbon, we need Aperol, we need simple syrup, and of course we need Prosecco. So to mix this drink, if you wanted to make a mocktail, you could substitute bourbon with vanilla. I think that's kind of a weird substitute, but this is what Google tells me. So we're going to do 1 part. Don't worry, I'm not filling this the whole way. 1 part bourbon. Thank you, bourbon. I'm sorry, it's 3 parts bourbon. 2 parts Aperol. You can substitute Aperol for bitters. San Pellegrino does a version, again, so Google tells me. And then we've got 1 part simple syrup, maybe a bit more for those who like things a little bit sweeter, just a little bit there. And then we're going to top it off with some Prosecco. It is cold Prosecco, but I prefer to have my cocktails on ice. Get some nice bubbly here. Nice cube or two. We're gonna mix it up with my very fancy mixer, which is a knife from my kitchen. And of course, please note my Disney themed cocktail glass. Let's give it a sip, see if it's any good. Yeah, that is good. It's a little different. This is my Mr. Toad's Wild Ride glass. So I'm gonna put the cocktail down because I really wanna focus on my next guest coming up. So I mentioned Temple Beth Am Community Theater, and it was actually one of the first projects that I got to sink my teeth into when I started at Beth Am about 4 years ago. Rabbi Kempler was showing me the ropes of the program department, and she set up a meeting for me to discuss Temple Beth Am's newest initiative, TBAM Community Theater. And I thought, oh my gosh, you could not have possibly been giving this project to a better person. So I then set up a meeting with Mrs. Alyssa Allen, I'm sorry, a teacher at Beth Am Day School and a lover of all things theater. So let's bring on our special guest, my dear friend and colleague, Alyssa Weiss-Allen. Alyssa, Zoom lag, there she is. Alyssa, welcome to Erev Tov. Thank you so much for being my very first guest. You were the first person I thought of because when I think of being in front of a camera and an audience, I think of you. So
to have that responsibility.
Yes, yes. So what were you thinking when you came into my office that day? Did you have any idea of the theater nerd that was sitting in front of you?
You know, I was hoping you were someone who would like theater because that could make or break this decision. And oh, thankfully you do. And you told me flat out that you're a musical theater lover. So when I did pitch the idea of having a Temple-wide community theater program, to offer the adults mostly of the synagogue just a chance to try out something they might end up loving when it comes to singing or dancing or even doing crew work backstage without judgment and without fear of not thinking that they're talented enough, because we find the talents in everyone.
Absolutely, absolutely. So before we dive really deep into theater, which I promise we will do, tell us a little bit more about yourself and how long you've been at Beth Am. You know, I mentioned as the program director, I wear a lot of hats, but you also wear a lot of hats and have through the years. So tell us a little bit about your time at Beth Am, and you can go all the way back to your birth, but tell us about yourself.
Right. I do wear many hats. I am a mommy to two adorable kids. But besides being a mommy, I started working at Beth Am 12 years ago with the religious school program, which I actually did with my husband. He and I did it together. And then I've been a Beth Am teacher. It'll be my 10th year now as a full-time teacher at Beth Am Day School. And besides that, I do have a habit of liking, I guess, to start programming if I'm able to. And one of the best things about Temple Beth Am is that they've always given me the opportunity to try something I really believed in out. So I approached the day school and asked about maybe starting a television news program, the way that a lot of schools have a TV news. And they said yes immediately, and we have a successful TBAM news program. I took over the after-school musical theater program. And so that's been about 10 years running of doing children's musical theater productions, both for fall and spring.
2 a year or 3 a year, right? 2 a year, and then the summer camp, right?
And actually, the program grew so popular, we had to open up 2 different days to offer, enough room for the class space for both the younger and the older elementary school students. So, it is really great. So that was really like doing 4 shows every year of just children's theater. I also asked the camp if we could kind of have a branch of another camp and start a performing arts camp, which again was super successful. So a lot of really fun programming before we even got to the community theater aspect.
Definitely. So then what from there was it was specifically just to offer something for adults, or what was it that really made you passionate about launching this specific program?
So, I love doing theater, as you can tell, so much. And the children in the program were having so much fun that there were several times some of their parents would come up to me after a show and say, I wish I could be in one of these. And that's why I said, well, you know what? I bet we could. Like, we've got such a great congregation. We have so many people with various talents. I bet we could get people who'd be interested in coming in and trying to put a show together. So that's where you and I came in. You were the very brand new program director, and the clergy directed me to you.
It was like my third week at Beth. I had just started. It was one of my very first official meetings. It was about theater, and I thought, to coach a show that I love, Annie, I think I'm going to like it here.
Love that.
So, I think it's true that a lot of people I know for me, I grew up doing theater, and as I got older, there just weren't that many opportunities. Even in college, if you wanted to do theater in college, you had to be majoring in theater. You couldn't just just wanting to do it for fun. And I found that in addition to missing being on stage, you really, perhaps the more important part of community theater is the community, because I even remember that our first show was Legally Blonde. We'll get more into the shows. And I initially was hesitant about being in it because I thought, I just moved here. I don't want my whole life to be at work. I later ended up jumping into the show, and I realized that I mean, all of my closest friends in Miami, pretty much, I met through our theater program. Because it was all people my age, teachers in the school, people who were all around me who I wasn't necessarily meeting in another capacity. And so I think that it has brought such an interesting engagement opportunity to the temple, for people to be involved in a way that they maybe never thought they would, to bring in new people, to be in the shows, to see the shows, to really just bring folks to the temple. So tell us, go ahead.
I was going to say, that's the beauty of our temple community theater program. It's specifically, we want the people who maybe even have never been in a show before joining us, because we want to open, this whole new world to them, and to encourage them and find the talents like wherever they are, and find what they're good at, and just get them to love being part of this like giant process where we become a theater family.
Absolutely. That even happens in sort of a microcosm when we do the Purim Spiel, which you have also directed at the temple. I should not forget to mention that. Our most recent Purim Spiel, of course, being Haymanton, which you can catch on your local live streaming channel, tvm.org/streaming. And before that, was it Chicago?
School of Rock, and then Chicago.
Right. So I believe you told me it was how many productions in full that you've directed at Temple Beth Am?
Yeah, at least 45 to my count. There's probably a few more, but I've directed 45 productions since the temple.
That's a lot. So we've talked about how theater is a lot of fun, and it is, but it never occurred to me until I was in it just how much work it is to not just put on a production, but to really launch a theater troupe. So why don't you take us through, and I'll chime in when relevant. You have directed or co-directed and co-produced. I would say we have co-produced all of these productions. 3 and a half, we'll get to the half, productions at Temple Beth Am. So take us through that process. What does it take to start a program? What are all the steps necessary before we even get to auditions? Like what does one have to do to launch a theater program and direct a show?
Yeah, let's talk about the community theater. So we may be putting on a show over a weekend, 3 performances over a nice weekend in May. But the truth is that we start 6 months before that. So we have our pre-production phase, and that's where we're first picking the show. So in order to pick the show, the most important thing is to know our audiences. What would be good for the Temple Beth Am audience? What kind of show? We need to do something that's popular enough where people will recognize the name and they'll want to see that. Something family appropriate enough. And usually we try to go with more of the lighthearted types of productions. Also, at the very beginning, and I know we'll get into that, we needed to find a show that would be easy when it came to costumes and set and different things before, we had a budget. So that first point is, let's pick the show. And then once we pick the show, that's when I, the program director, and usually our technical our technical director, which is Phil Nathanson, sit down.
Shout out to Phil.
Shout out to Phil.
Shout out to Mr. Nathanson, as he's also known.
And we go through the process. We go through the budget, exactly what we have and what we can afford to do. What we would need to do with a timeline. Before we even do auditions, we actually work backwards with the date of the show and, figuring out how many rehearsals we can have. What do we need to accomplish in these rehearsals to pull off the show? When do we need technical rehearsals and scheduling? Scheduling is huge. I mean, Beth is this whole machine of lots of different types of programs. So we need to make sure that we have the time and the space and we're not taking anything away from other important programs. So once we do
finding a room at Beth, it's currently a non-issue. But although I will say that one of my favorite things that would happen during rehearsals is when, we have such a bustling campus and when people would happen upon a rehearsal. I always loved when someone would stumble upon this very special thing that was going on. To me, it was so indicative of how such a diversity of activities going on at the temple, where in one room you heard all these people doing like Krav Maga. In another room, you've got a board meeting. In another room, you've got people learning to, tap dance. It's a pretty eclectic array of activities going on any given day at the temple. That's probably one of the things I miss the most about being there in person. It's just, you can't even believe. Oh, and by the way, there's probably a basketball game going on at the same time.
Oh yeah, don't forget hearing those basketballs bounce like when we're doing a very dramatic scene for
That's right. In a very dramatic moment, you just hear, may that building rest in peace.
Correct. So once we do all of our pre-planning, which started in November, we're ready to move on to the casting. So we then move on to advertising and getting it out there, letting people know, hey, we have this thing going on in our community. Come join us. You can either be on stage or be backstage, but we'd love your help. And what we do is we tend to welcome those who are in middle school and above to be in our shows, because since we have musical theater for the elementary school age, and because it's nighttime rehearsals, we try to get, the kids that are now a little bit older and are able to kind of handle not only being around adults, because there's all different ages in our program, but also, have a 7 to 9 p.m. rehearsal and still be able to accomplish their schoolwork.
Ages 12 to 112 is how we advertise our program.
We do. And,
one of those 100-year-olds, but I believe they'll come.
And I'd let someone who's 113 and also.
That's right. They're not eligible.
So then we start with the casting. The casting is always a fun time, and we try to welcome everyone who wants to be part of it. We find something for them to do. And then once we cast the show, we are ready in January when we come back from winter break to start rehearsals. We usually try to do one night a week, and a 2-hour rehearsal once a week, because the majority of our cast members are not people who usually do theater. They're doctors and teachers and attorneys and, high school dance team kids. And we want to make sure that we respect everyone's time. Most people in the cast have either fur babies or real babies to take care of. So we do that once a week get together. And we start with the blocking process. We learn choreography. We learn the singing numbers and the vocal cords. And then hopefully, usually around February and March, we get into the being able to stage the whole show through and finish with all the blocking so that we are able to start a show ready for the Beth population in May. Oh, but we can't forget.
Yeah.
Can't forget, again, we go into those meetings once a week where we're still having production meetings. We're still making sure that we're ready with custodial staff, with ticketing, with more advertising and marketing, all the elements that aren't just part of the actual show. But
all of those elements have been such a great engagement tool as well. I mean, one of the things I love about having teens in the show is that we also get their parents involved in the show, and they're selling the tickets, and they're ushering, and they're selling the concessions. And as much as that might sound like a small role, it's actually a super essential role, and it makes them feel so much more part of the mishpacha. And beyond that, one of the things that I find so profound about it is the way we both bring in brand new people who maybe never touched at Beth before. I'm thinking of Amanda Pearl, the lead in our first show. I'm thinking of Adam Bornstein, the lead in our second show. And also people who have been members of the temple for years, and we never knew. Who knew Dr. David Racher was such a talented thespian? I didn't know. Now I know him well. I've co-starred with him in 2 shows. So it's just so wonderful to see people come out of the woodwork like that. You just never know the way that somebody's going to connect at the temple. And I think that's why it is just so important to ensure a variety of activities. And what's unique about the arts is that not only can you be involved in the process of being in the show, but the amount of people that came to see the shows was just so overwhelming to me.
Yeah, a few hundred every night. And then you've got a cast or crew of at least 30 and above, like once you get the crew together, which mostly we have high school kids become part of our crew, which is amazing. We love that. And it just becomes this huge, giant program that we bring audience members who'd never stepped foot in our campus before. And now they're seeing this beautiful temple. They're seeing like these amazing programs that, we have, and some of them become part of us. I mean, we've had cast members who became secretaries in the administration in the office, or even Adam Burke.
That's right.
Yeah, Gaston is starting as the music teacher this year. So we bring in people.
Gaston will not be the music teacher. Let's clarify. Adam Bornstein will be the music teacher, who in real life is vastly different. But yeah, I mean, really the key to engagement in any program is that you want to plan a program with a group of people. All of them want it to be successful. So they bring their friends, and they bring their friends, and they bring their friends. So when you're talking about a theatrical production of, I think Beauty and the Beast had like 40 people in it, and they're bringing their friends, and they're bringing their friends, and their bubbies, and their moms. It creates a really powerful community to come rally around this like very fun and lighthearted event.
One of my favorite memories was actually Beauty and the Beast during a rehearsal, and this was very common when we'd have some actors on stage, being directed and doing either dancing or singing at the time. We'd have other young actors, like younger high school students, who were getting kind of tutored by some of our teachers and doing their homework help. So we'd have, like a 13-year-old learning about something from Dr. Racher or John Fleeman, or we'd have, our favorite PTA mom, P-Star mom, Sarah Berkowitz, who's like, being all motherly and making sure one of our dancers has a snack to eat. So it really
a peanut-free snack. So let's go through just a little bit of each of the productions. Again, our first year we did Legally Blonde, the musical, which has always been one of my favorites personally. The second year we wanted to make it a little bit more specifically family-friendly. Legally Blonde is not family unfriendly, but maybe has some more adult themes in it. And then we went back to the more adult themes with Mamma Mia, although I think it mostly went over the heads of young kids. I remember people asking me, is this appropriate for children? And I thought, I think most children will just love the music and not have any clue what was going on in the show. But take us through just a little bit of each production and sort of what you learned from each that you were able to take into the next.
I love that question, because the truth is we really do learn every single show, and we just get better and better. So Legally Blonde was our very first show. We did not really have a budget. So we used that show where everyone was providing their own costumes and their own props, but it was the kind of show where that was easy to do. It was so fun. It's a fun show. It's very high energy, and it's just a giant.
To your earlier point, we picked it because we didn't need to have this huge budget for sets and costumes. It's a show that takes place in real life in modern times.
Correct. So, we'd have everyone working on their bends and snaps and like doing super fun things together. And it was just a really fun way to spend your evening once a week. It was a beautiful production in the sense of we were all together, we were having fun, the audience was having fun, But what we did take away was it was so important to invest in good quality sound equipment, because we needed to do justice to the actors and the performers. And that made us decide that no matter what, we would find room in a budget to have the highest quality sound we could find. We'd get a company to come in and make sure that there were never any mic problems that could be helped, and that, you know, the audience would be there sitting and listening to the music and singing the way it was meant to be. So that was our big, it was, we had the talent, we needed to work on the tech. So we decided we've got to go big for the next one. So then came Beauty and the Beast, which is a show you have to do justice for. And that justice included us having the most gorgeous set and the most gorgeous costumes ever. So we had
my sister, by the way, a Tisch graduate, saw the pictures from Beauty and the Beast and was like, how were you able to do this? How were you able to invest in this? And the truth is, you know, Legally Blonde we did on a shoestring, and it was so successful that we were able to reinvest all of that into really upping the stakes for our second production. We're so blessed to have such a receptive audience who was patient with us through our technical difficulties.
Exactly what it is. Whatever we are able to make from these shows goes right into the next show. So we were so successful with Legally Blonde, we were able to produce this beautiful show that I had audience members coming up to me after the show saying, this was like being in a real, like an Adrian Arch Center, the way that this production was. It was gorgeous. It was beautiful. We had tons of children who got to go on stage and meet these actors and actresses in full costume. And it was just magical. But it was also difficult in the sense of, oh boy, is that a show you need harmony for? And we are not professionals. We are just people with the love of putting on a show. So it was very tedious trying to learn how to do this beautiful harmonizing and singing with a lot of vocal, you know, skills that you would need years of practice to succeed in. And we did sound great, but it taught us that we also have to figure out another show for the next one that maybe wouldn't be so strenuous when it comes to the kind of talent, given that, you know, we're just people with the love.
I think also just the expectation of the audience, because Beauty and the Beast is material that everybody knows. Beauty and the Beast, everybody expects something very specific. That was really something that we had a leg up on with Legally Blonde. Is everybody knows the movie Legally Blonde. The show was pretty popular, but it's not like it's this ubiquitous thing that everybody knows by heart. I mean, I know it by heart, but I'm a theater nerd. But whereas Beauty and the Beast is like, you really got to do it right. You really got to live up to a very specific expectation. And I think we really did. But to your point, it was a lot. It was a lot to take on. It's a long show, and it's sort of jam-packed. But I was lucky enough to, I think, have the best costume.
I think you had
wardrobe, and I got to,
not just that, you had one of the best parts. I mean, you were the show stealer, the scene stealer. So
there are no small parts, only small actors.
So then we decided for our next show, we've got to do something just as amazing, but maybe a little bit easier. And that's where Mamma Mia came in. Mamma Mia is high energy. It's great. We had great sets, great costumes. It was fun. It was popular. Everyone knows the music. It's the total package, but it's also a little bit easier harmony wise, and really to showcase our talent and to make them, you know, just soar up there, because it's not as hard on them to be able to perform these numbers. So I think that for Mamma Mia, we kind of hit it on the nail. And
this is a show that people probably are pretty familiar with the music, but are maybe coming in with, well, certainly lower expectations from the film, because, you know, Pierce Brosnan can't sing to save his life. So really it was, you go in just looking for a fun time and not so much the most elite theatrical production in the world. But I'm obviously partial to our production of Mamma Mia, because I finally got to purchase a pair of overalls to be in the production, which I had been wanting to do for a while. No, I'm just kidding.
I think it
was a dream to be in that show, for sure.
I've got to say, casting director is usually really good with this stuff. pat myself.
You just knew I wanted the overalls. That's why you got me the show. So tell us a little bit about Spelling Bee, our fourth little production that could or maybe couldn't. Tell us a little bit about, first of all, why we chose that show and sort of what the status of the program is now.
All right. Well, Spelling Bee is actually my favorite community theater show that we have done. And well, we haven't really performed it yet, but at least we're almost
just
there. Hoping we'll get there and we will be able to showcase it, when things are safe again. But the reason why I love this show is because since we knew that we would not have an auditorium for the first time ever, we had to do something that would not require a set, that would require a space that was that we could share with all the other programming. So that also meant a smaller cast. And the 25th annual Putnam County Spelling Bee was like the most perfect show to ever do when your temple's under construction, because it's got a spelling bee. You don't need
a line of notes like, please do this show when your temple's under construction.
You need a microphone and you need 9 spellers, 6 spellers and 3 judges. So the entire set is kind of the way it would be in school. And so our setting actually looked like it could be a real life spelling bee. And this is a fun show. I mean, I think that this is my favorite because you can tell me if you agree, but every rehearsal, it seemed like not just for me, but for all those involved, it was like the funnest 2 hours of your entire week. It was nonstop laughing and, great moments and just a perfect sync of like the actors, no matter what the age, from the younger, like 14-year-old to the elders. Yeah. Just coming together.
I think it's also a show that has a lot of ad-libbing, and it's a show that I had seen it before, like when it was touring a gajillion years ago, and I remember loving it, but I didn't really remember anything else about it. So there's something kind of fun. There's something really fun about doing something like Mamma Mia, where I have known every word to every ABBA song since I was a kid, and I've always wanted to sing it. But there's something in some ways even more fun about doing something that you're really not familiar with and that you have to learn from scratch and can really make your own in a different way. It presents a different challenge. It's easy to teach ABBA music because everybody knows, Dancing Queen. But it was really, and this is because of all the ad-libbing and the nature of the show, it was such a great way to feature really every single person in the cast. It really is such an ensemble. There really isn't any one lead in the show.
No, every single cast member has an equal role in this. We work as an ensemble. There's even, because of the improv, even when we put on the show, things are going to be different every single night that we do it. And that's part of the fun of it. Like, we don't know what's going to happen. It's fun to just kind of go with it. And we know that the audiences will be so immersed and engaged, and they'll just be laughing nonstop.
We don't know what's going to happen is the perfect way to describe the 25th annual Putnam County Spelling Bee, because of course, we were supposed to put the show up in May. We were, 2.5 months into rehearsals when the world changed. We entered our new normal. And, unfortunately, because of, we had talked about like, well, what if we could do something via Zoom? But you can't sing in concert on Zoom. There's a lag. And so it's really not conducive to theater. And it's one of the things I'm finding I'm missing so much, is just that live theater experience that isn't even really that easy to capture on Zoom, other than a sort of a private concert. And for me, it's been one of the hardest things about this new normal of being locked down is not being able to take in the arts, because it's really something that not only brings me joy, but it's been such a profound way that we have been able to connect, really just as a society, but specifically at Temple Beth. It was devastating to me that we had initially delayed it to August, thinking maybe the world would be normal by then. Well, it's August in 2 days, and the world is not normal. We pushed it to December, thinking the world will be normal by then. Who knows what normal will be? But my hope is that we can find some way to make this happen, maybe we get creative on Zoom. I don't know. I'm not giving up hope yet.
No, I'm not giving up either. I mean, there's actually a popularity right now of doing live theater, more drive-in style. There's ways we may find that it'll be our regular spring show like it normally is, just a year delayed. Who knows? But I think we'll be able to, showcase this to the audience. It's just a matter of when.
Particularly because we do have so many limitations with the amazing construction project that's going on right now that took away our theater. We were going to do this in the social hall. And this show really works in that environment, and that's why we picked it. So we shall see. What would you say is the difference? What is the same and what is different about directing adults and directing children?
That's a great question. So the biggest difference is that children are fearless. They are able to get up there and do things that are a little bit more embarrassing or that adults hesitate to want to do in front of an audience. So the kids will come out, they'll pour their entire heart into the performance. I mean, when you watch kids doing theater, this is why I love it.
It gets me. Your production of The Lion King moved me to tears, and I'm not exaggerating. I was sobbing. It was so beautiful.
That's actually my favorite piece of theater I've ever done for children's theater was my Lion King show. Without a set, without anything, these children, we built a set, we built costumes and masks, and they're dancing. I mean, the things that they put into it.
I was sobbing. Children doing theater makes me emotional because I want to just go to them and be like, do you understand all the life skills you're learning right now? Do you understand what an impact this is going to have on you long term? But I think also what makes me emotional about it is just what you're getting at, that to see a kid being so not self-conscious is really so inspiring. It makes you think about the way that you see yourself and the way that you yourself want to jump into things.
I've had students that are so shy, but they've entered this program and they get on stage and it's something they've been doing with their friends and rehearsing and practicing. And it's something that when you do a show, it's like you take ownership. You do this together.
You want to make sure it's good. We're all in this together, you might say.
Yeah. Children are fearless. That's the big difference. Adults are passionate. The adults doing community theater, again, we're parents, we're full-time workers, we're all different types of a blended community coming together to put on a show. None of us are getting paid to do this. It's purely for the love of it. But most of us at this age now, being older, are restricted in what we will do, in front of an audience. So that's the big difference.
Well, I want to wrap a little bit with a rapid fire quiz. But before I do that, I just want to kind of really drive home the fact that why do we do this at the synagogue? Like, how do the arts really build Jewish communities specifically?
So that's a great question. We do it because we've got such a dynamic congregation. We have a huge one. We have so many people and there's so much talent. And even for those who might not want to perform, I feel like it's such a giant community of people who want to go and see like a theatrical production, and they want to see the people they know that they're familiar with, not actors that they've never heard of. These are like their neighbors, and these are, their attorneys and their doctors and their school teachers coming together to put on a show. And it just becomes this huge mesh of like, it really is our community. We're together, we're producing something, we're building something from the ground up, and we're doing something for the love of it, just to make other people happy, to give them something to watch and see and to become part of for those 2.5 hours.
I think I would compare it also to our basketball program. Take something that people are seeking, something that brings them together with other like-minded people, and let's give them a space to do that. Oh, and by the way, this is at your synagogue. And I also think that one of the most profound things to me about being Jewish is that I feel like I'm part of something really special. I don't want to say like chosen, this is a word that's thrown around. I just mean like being a part of a Jewish community makes me feel like I'm a part of something special. And that's really how it feels to be a part of a theater production. You're building something together. It's something special. And if you can put a Jewish lens on that, it's going to tie you to your Jewish community even deeper. I mean, we even had a Shabbat dinner. Was it during Beauty and the Beast or Mamma Mia? No, it was Mamma Mia. Where we came together and went to Shabbat services and had a Shabbat dinner together in the kids' cafeteria afterwards. And it was such a nice way to infuse two passions for me of theater and Judaism. So with that, I'm going to end with a rapid fire quiz.
All right.
About theater and theatrical things that we both love. Okay, so not a quiz, but like a survey, I guess. Favorite musical?
Favorite musical is Bat Boy.
Really? Interesting choice. My favorite musical is 1776. You well know I share that with your husband, Matt. My two favorite musicals are 1776 and Hamilton. I just really like musicals about the Revolutionary War. Favorite play?
To Kill a Mockingbird. What about yours?
I would have to say Noises Off. I'm actually not a big play person, but I love Noises Off. I've seen it many times and it's hysterical.
That's hilarious. I love that show.
Love that show. I would love to do that show. Favorite song from a musical?
So One Day More from Les Mis. It just always gets me here.
It's interesting that you say that because I am going to choose Nonstop from Hamilton, which I refer to as the One Day More of Hamilton. It's a little hackneyed for me to pick a Hamilton song, but when I was watching, Eric and I were watching Hamilton on Disney Plus, and when that song came on, it just kept going, oh, it's so good. It's just so good. Like I couldn't even handle it. So my favorite songs are the ones that arouse that emotion in me. Okay, favorite show that you've been in?
So that would have to be shout out to Miami Palmetto Senior High year of 2001 Fiddler on the Roof production. That is my absolute favorite show I've been in.
Favorite show I've been in? That is really tough. I think I would probably have to say Anything Goes. When I was a junior in high school, I played Reno Sweeney in Anything Goes, and it was the first time I ever had a lead. And that's a very silly and stupid show, but it's a very fun show to be in. So that would probably be my choice. Mamma Mia would be a close second, because what a dream part to be Meryl Streep. Okay, favorite Broadway experience?
Okay, so my first Broadway experience was actually, my mom took me to New York City when I was 13. I guess it was kind of a bat mitzvah gift. And we watched first Les Mis. So that's how we were introduced to this amazing piece. And then followed it up with Beauty and the Beast. So 2 stunning shows over a weekend. And I was just sitting there amazed.
So mine would have to be a tie. I'm cheating, but I'm running this show, so I get to cheat. It would be a tie, 1 musical and 1 play. So I flew up to go see Daniel Radcliffe in Equus, which is a show where it's a very dark show where he gets naked, and it was just very funny because clearly a lot of people who had gone to the show didn't understand what the show was about, and so that was just an entertaining experience. And it was also the first time I ever sort of planned a New York trip for myself. Before I actually went to live there, where my second favorite experience was, I did live in New York City for 4 years when I attended the Jewish Theological Seminary. And one of my closest friends used to come in and visit, and we would just like binge shows, one of these wait at the box office when it opens and try to get student rush tickets. And we tried for 2 days to get rush tickets to go see Pippin, which is not really a show that I like that much, but we heard this production was amazing. We waited for hours, didn't get the seats. The next day we went and we got standing room tickets, and it was the most exceptional thing I've ever seen on Broadway. Despite the show being mediocre, it was this production that was sort of a Cirque du Soleil experience. It was remarkable. That would be that. So that's my tie. Confused teenagers and standing room only performance.
By the way, I just have to let you know that I did see Equus when I was about 14 at French Woods Festival, my performing arts summer camp. That's how theater becomes appropriate.
It is not. It's much different than Harry Potter. What is your dream show to direct?
I would love. Well, I really hope we get to spelling bee. But dream show when we get our new theater, maybe we could pull off Wicked.
Oof.
I know.
I'm casting it in my head right now. I'm going to skip that question because I'm not meant to be a director. I tried it once in high school. It wasn't for me. Dream part to play.
Oh, definitely the innkeeper's wife from Les Mis.
Nice.
I would love that role. I love doing comedy, and I wouldn't mind singing as a character.
My dream role would probably have to be the narrator from Joseph. I love that show. Judge me for loving Andrew Lloyd Webber. Judge away. I love that show. Okay, two more and then we'll wrap. Favorite memory from a show that either you've directed or starred in?
So my favorite memory really is The Lion King. It was the first time not having a stage, and this performing arts camp that we did last summer, just everyone, all the children rallying together, having the most amazing counselors with me as we molded a super hard show and a super beautiful show, which turned out to be one of the most beautiful shows ever. I mean, when I saw the lights that Phil Nathanson did for the very opening song of Circle of Life, when we have like a sun rising and then everyone was theater in the round, like surrounded. I mean, it was a feeling like we were all there being part of it.
Favorite memory is tough. I have some great ones, but I'm gonna take a more recent memory, and that was there was a song in Mamma Mia called "Slipping Through My Fingers," which is a song that Donna sings to her daughter Sophie. And when I was cast in the show, my mom was like, "Aren't you a little young to be playing that part?" And I was like, "Well, I'm 34 at the time, 34, and the girl playing my daughter is 17, so like actually not," which was weird. But Lauren, our wonderful, beautiful star, had never been in a lead role before and was always such a strong dancer. And we discovered when she auditioned for Mamma Mia that she had this beautiful voice. And it was so rewarding just watching her sort of just blossom. It's, again, cheesy to say that, but she really did, and sort of come out of her shell and sort of start to understand just how talented she was. And so singing that song to her, the song is about watching your daughter growing up and letting her go. And I really felt like I was projecting that because I did feel so maternal towards her, because it was so moving to me to see that theater was a way for her to really come into her own as a woman. I mean, she's 18 now, she's a woman. And that was just a really meaningful moment for me. I made her cry pretty much every night, which is a huge feather in my cap. Shout outs to Lauren. We love you. And we will close with, what is the funniest memory from a show you've ever been in or directed?
Okay, so this is going to be a Legally Blonde moment, and this is the song Gay or European, which had, we've mentioned him like 4 times tonight, but Phil Nathanson and Greenstein, both of them were not actually actors in our show. They kind of became guest actors. You see, most of us in the show we needed more guys, so we made our husbands and boyfriends be in the show. We've pretty much forced them. And so these 2 guys who
they hated it,
are not really singers, are not really people who do the stage, pulled off these 2 characters that it became a showstopper. The audience roared. They were funny every night. It was so much fun to watch like raw talent just come out. And it was funny.
I'd say the funniest moment that I can recall from a show that I've been in was when I was a child. I was in a production of Carousel. I was probably, 7. And I was doing this dance move, this flea hops, and the song June is Busting Out All Over on a picnic bench. And I just missed my footing and fell right through the bench. It actually doesn't sound that funny, but it's funny because I wasn't hurt. But it was just funny. All of a sudden, this little girl in pigtails just disappeared from the set. And it was funny, at least. I think you had to be there, but it wasn't. So I'm now getting to the point of the show where I'm talking really fast, and it's like the 2 of us are, having a drink together, as we often do. So we're going to wrap up this edition of Erev Tov. Alyssa, thank you so much for coming on. You know that I could talk theater with you for hours and have been known to. So I hope that we can do it in person sometime, and certainly I look forward to, whenever life gets back to normal, whatever that is, a strong future for our little baby that is TDM Community Theater. So Erev Tov, everyone. Enjoy your bullet over Broadway. again, doesn't have to be bullet, but highly recommended. It is on sale. Have a wonderful evening. I'll be back next week with another edition of Erev Tov.
Thanks, Andrea.
Mwah.
יכולתי לפחות להחליף את הכיסאות כי אומרים בדרך כלל משנה מקום משנה מזל אני שואל אתם עונים האם זה פייר ולא יודעים אח שלי אסף בולים לכן עבד בדואר